Today I'm going to show you guys how to knit my Wildwood sweater vest. This is a great knit, quick knit. It's knit on 9mm needles. I use Lion Brand Respun Thick and Quick yarn, which is considered a little bit of a thinner, super bulky weight yarn. Make sure you click the link in the video description to get your copy of the pattern so you can follow along with me and make your own version as I go. I knit a size 3 for reference. I am a size 37-inch bust, and a size 3 has finished measurements of 42.5 inches. So pick a sweater vest size that fits accordingly depending on how much ease you would like. It is knit from the top down, starting with the back, and then you put stitches on a stitch holder after you increase for the underarms, and then you knit the left and the right fronts, and you join everything together and continue down across the body, finish with the ribbing. Then you'll knit the buttonhole band and the armhole ribbing. So that's overall how it's constructed. If you're newer to knitting, don't worry, you can follow along with me along the way. Let's get started. All right, to start the sweater vest, we're casting on stitches for the top of the back, and we're gonna start by working at the top of the back all the way down. So you're gonna wanna make sure you have a long enough tail to cast on the stitches that you need to cast on for your size. Just reference the pattern and what size you're knitting. If you're knitting a size 3, for example, you're gonna look at the third number in the in the list of all of the numbers. So we're going to start by making a slip knot, and then we're going to cast on our stitches. The slip knot counts as the first stitch. So this is called the long tail cast on method. You can use whatever cast on method you like. I just find that this is the easiest way to cast on. So like I said, cast on the number of stitches you need for your size. And once you have your cast on stitches on, this is considered the right side of the work. We're going to turn the work now, and we are going to purl back. This is our first row of stockinette stitch. A stockinette stitch is purling a row on the wrong side and knitting a row on the right side. So you're just going to continue knitting stockinette stitch until the length that your pattern says to knit to. So we are just knitting the back straight, and then we're going to be doing a series of increases to shape the underarm. So continue purling on the wrong side. All right, when you've finished your first purl row, you simply turn the work. Now we are on the right side of the work, and you're simply going to knit. So you knit a row, and then you turn the work again, and you purl a row, and then you're going to continue this for a certain length. Your pattern tells you to knit stockinette straight for a certain length, and then we will be doing a series of increases to shape the work for the underarm. And you're going to measure the work from the cast on edge to where you are at the bottom. So I'll see you back here in a little bit until I am at the point where I'm ready to increase stitches for the underarm. And make sure you've knit to the length that you're supposed to knit to for your size, and make sure you end after you've completed a wrong side row. So that is after you've finished purling all the way back. You're going to turn the yarn over, and now we are going to increase for the underarm shaping, and we're going to be increasing after 4 stitches here and before 4 stitches at the end. So I will show you how to do that. So we're going to be increasing on the right side rows only, just so you know. So you're going to be knitting across 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now to increase, we are going to make one left, which means make one that leans to the left. So to make one left, you insert your stitch, insert your left hand marker in front of the stitch from the front to the back, okay? And then you're going to knit it through the back. That is making one left. You can see that the stitch leans to the left a little bit. So then you're simply going to knit all the way across till you have 4 stitches left on your left-hand needle. All right, I've knit all the way across my work until I have 4 stitches left on my left-hand needle. Now I'm going to make one right. So I'm going to increase a stitch, but have it slant the opposite direction that we did previously. And then to make one right, we insert our needle from back to front and knit the stitch through the front. Basically, the way we pick up that stitch from the front to the back or back to the front and knit it through the front or knit it through the back, just twists the stitch differently to get it to look a certain way. And then you just simply knit to the end. All right, so we have increased 2 stitches now, and we are going to turn the work, and we're simply going to purl back. And then I'll show you one more time how to do that increase row. Okay, I've purled back. I'm on the right side row again. And if you look back, you can see my increase stitch right there. And now I'm going to increase again, following the same directions I did before. So we knit 4. And then we're going to make one that leans to the left. Our previous one is there. So to make one left, we insert the needle from front to back and knit it through the back. All right, so now you can see our stitches increase there. We're going to knit to 4 stitches to the end. All right, I've got 4 stitches left on my left-hand needle. Now I'm going to make one right, insert the needle from back to the front, and knit through the front, and then we knit to the end. All right, so you're going to continue this fashion, increasing and repeating the increase row followed by the purl row for a certain number of times until your pattern tells you how many stitches you're supposed to have. So I'll see you back here when you've finished your increases. All right, I'm just finishing up my last increase row and wanted to mention that you need to make sure you turn the work and purl back and you end after a wrong side when you've done all of the increases you need to do. And then just really make sure you check your stitch count at this point. The pattern will tell you how many stitches you're supposed to have and how many increases you should make. So I'll see you back here when I'm done with this row. Okay, so I have completed the back to, I've knit down to the point I'm supposed to knit before I increase. I've made all of my increases, and then I've knit back on the wrong side of the work. And so now I'm going to cut the yarn and leave a tail to weave in. And now we're done knitting the back until we join it all together. So now you're going to want to take a tapestry needle and a piece of waste yarn, and we're going to move all of the back stitches onto a piece of waste yarn. I thread my tapestry needle with a piece of scrap yarn. I like to use a different color. And now we are going to move our stitches on the needle off onto this piece of waste yarn. So you just slide the stitches off and start pulling the stitches through. You want to make sure the piece of waste yarn is much longer than the width of the sweater so the stitches fit comfortably on the piece of waste yarn. So like I said, you just continue lifting the stitches off and sliding them onto the waste yarn. Then when you've got all the stitches, you just pull through, making sure you grab the other tail so you don't slide everything off, and then you just let your stitches rest on the piece of waste yarn. All right, now we are going to flip the work over, and we're going to work on the right front. So we're going to pick up stitches, the number of stitches your pattern calls for, and we're going to work down the right front. Okay, so take your needle, take your yarn, and you're going to pick up the number of stitches starting at the end. And you insert your needle through that top V and take your yarn, go up and around the needle and pull through. This part can be a little tricky to get it started. All right, and then you're gonna wanna kind of hold that taut. This will just hang here and then we'll weave this in later. But you work across into each stitch, picking up stitches. So put your needle in through the next one, up and over, pull through. That's 2 stitches, 3, and so you keep working across here, going into each stitch and picking up a stitch until you have the number of stitches you're supposed to pick up. All right, and when you have your stitches picked up, you're going to turn the work now and work back. And you just purl across. So now we're working back and forth. We will be increasing for the V-neck, and we're also going to be increasing for the armhole stitches. And I'm not going to specify how many rows. You need to be careful. Basically, you're going to knit and increase for the V-neck, while also knitting straight until you hit a certain length and then increasing for the armholes, while also maintaining the V-neck increases on this side. So I'll show you what I mean. So we purled back, then you're going to continue stockinette for the number of stitches that your pattern calls for. Turn the work and go back. I'll see you back here after you've finished the number of stockinette rows that you're supposed to complete before there are any increases. I'm on the right side of the work. I've ended after a wrong side row. I've picked up stitches. I've knit stockinette the number of rows I'm supposed to knit until I do my V-neck increase. So we're going to start our V-neck increases. We're going to knit until 2 stitches until the end, and then we will make 1 right, and then we'll knit 2 stitches, purl back, knit, purl, and then do an increase row. So we are doing increase rows every other right side row. And then at the same time, you'll be making sure you work those V-neck increases for a certain length. It'll match the length that you knit straight on the back before you did your underarm increases. So I'm going to work here and show you how to do this increase. So you knit across until 2 stitches to the end, and then you're going to make 1 right, and then knit those 2 stitches, purl back, and like I said, we do our V-neck increase every other right side row. So not yet, not on this row, because we just did it on the last right side row. So work this right side row, purl back, all right, and now we're at the point where we do another V-neck increase. So I'll show you one more time. You knit to 2 stitches to the end, and you make 1 right, and knit to the end. All right, so like I said, you do your V-neck increase on every other right side row until you've hit the length that you're supposed to hit, until you need to do your underarm increases too. That'll match the length that you knit down from the back to do your underarm increases. So when we fold the work, it should meet. So you can always fold the work and measure down, but you're gonna wanna knit the same amount of rows you knit on the other side. I'll see you back here when it's time for me to increase for the underarms and also maintaining that V-neck increase as well. All right, now I'm to the point where I need to start increasing for the underarm while also maintaining my V-neck. I just did an increase on the right side, so when I start increasing here, I won't increase here for this round. And I knew it was time because I knit to the same length on the back and counted the rows just to make sure it was the same. So I'm increasing at the same point I did on the other side. So you might also need to increase at the V-neck. You might be at the point where you increase at the V-neck too. So again, you kind of got to keep track of two different things. You got to keep track of the V-neck increases and you got to keep track of the underarm increases at the same time. So I will show you how to do an underarm decrease without a V-neck increase, and then I'll show you how I do both. So again, same thing we did before. We knit 4. We make 1 left. And then all I need to do now is knit to the end. All right, I'm going to turn the work and I'm going to purl back. Turn the work. Now, underarm increase and a V-neck increase. So remember we do the underarm increase on every right side row while we do the V-neck increase every other right side row. So I'm going to knit 4, make 1 left again, knit to 2 stitches to the end, and then I'm going to make 1 right, and then knit 2. So continue in this fashion, doing the V-neck increases the number of times you're supposed to do them, and the underarm increases the number of times you're supposed to do them. You can count how many V-neck increases you've done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I've done 1, 2. You are going to want to end on the right side here, and you'll complete your last underarm increase and your last V-neck increase. It should work out like that, unless the pattern specifies otherwise. So then you are going to want to then you're going to snip the yarn here, take a tapestry needle again, a piece of waste yarn, and then we're going to move all of those stitches onto a tapestry needle piece of, we're going to remove all of these stitches that are on the needle and put them on a piece of waste yarn by using our tapestry needle and shifting all of these stitches onto the piece of yarn. All right, make sure your right front is securely on a piece of waste yarn. I'm just going to show you what it's looking like now. I know that front panel seems that right panel seems really thin, but we're going to be doing ribbing to make it bigger. So again, this is the top of the back. And we're going to now do the same thing we did for the right front For the left front, it's just going to be mirrored, so our increases will be a little different. So take your yarn and join again and pick up stitches, making sure you start 1, 2, however many stitches in. You need to start to pick up stitches. All right, so now I'm just picking up stitches for my left front, and again, you're going to be mirroring what you did on the other side for the right side. It's just going to be, we're going to work the same length and do everything similarly, but we're just mirroring everything. So I will show you how to do that. So pick up stitches again, and then you're going to work the number of rows, stockinette rows that you need to work for your size before you increase. So I'll see you back here after I've done my stockinette rows and I'm ready to do my first increase for my V-neck. Okay, so to do a V-neck increase, you're going to knit 2 and you're going to make 1 left and knit to the end. And again, you do this on every other right side row. So I'm going to continue on, and then I will show you how to complete the underarm increase when it's time to do that. All right, so I'm at the point now where I've done some of the V-neck increases, but now it's time for me to start increasing for the underarm. I am not on a row where I do both increases at the same time, so I do not need to increase at the V-neck when I start my underarm increases for my size. So again, just make sure you're keeping the V-neck increases and the underarm increases straight for your size. Okay, so you're going to knit to 4 stitches till the end, and then you're going to do a make 1 right to increase on this side till the end. So that's how you do the underarm increases. And then once I get to a row where I'm doing both increases at the same time, I'll show you how to do that. All right, now I'm on a right side row where I need to do both a V-neck increase and an underarm increase. So I'm going to knit 2 stitches, do my V-neck increase by making 1 left. Then I'm going to knit to 4 stitches to the end. And then I will do my underarm increase, which is done by making 1 right. All right, so that's how you do all of the increases. So you're going to continue on mirroring what you did on the right side of the work for this side, the left side. So I'll see you back here when you are done with all of your increases and you have finished a wrong side row. Okay, now I want to explain to you what's happened. What's going to happen. I have finished my left front and I've ended after a wrong side. So I'm on the right side of the work, okay? Now I'm at the point where it's time to connect the fronts to the back. We're not going to connect this because this is an open vest. So we're going to be knitting back and forth, but we have all of these stitches on a piece of waste yarn. So in order to knit back and forth, we need to take our needle that's already connected to the left front and we need to put it on so that the needle comes back out this way and we can start working. So in order to do that, we need to make sure we put the stitches back on the needle starting on the back but on the right side. So take some time now and start putting these back stitches back on the needle, working from left to right on the wrong side of the work here. So just start putting these back on. You can start to pull the waste yarn out if you like, or you can wait till the end. So I'll see you back here once I've got these back stitches on. Okay, now I'm just gonna pull the piece of waste yarn out and, okay, so I've got the back stitches on. So just to give you the big picture, again, I've got the front stitches on, I've got the back stitches on the same needle here. You can't really see that too well. I've got my yarn stuck through here. Make sure you leave that out. Okay, Now we need to continue around and get these right front stitches on the needle. So make sure you're working right to left on the right side when you start to put these stitches through. So the vest needs to basically have the fronts and the backs together so that you can knit seamlessly across all of the pieces now for the body. So we're connecting the left and right fronts to the back, and we're going to knit back and forth for the body now. So get all of these stitches on. All right, I'm going to pull this through, get that out. All right, so all of my stitches are on the needle, and you're going to want to pull this through because you're going to be using this piece of yarn or this needle to work off the left-hand needle. So we are basically now just treating this like it's a cardigan, working back and forth, okay? So we simply just start knitting across the left front. And when you near the end of the left front, we've got that last stitch there, you're simply going to just keep knitting for the back, okay? And you can pull this piece of waste yarn, or not waste yarn, you can pull the tail a little bit. We'll be weaving that in later. I'm kind of holding it with my right hand. So we've connected the left front to the back now. And then now you're going to knit all the way across the back. Okay, now I've knit across the back, and same thing, you just connect the back to the right front simply by continuing to knit. Oops. And you just knit to the end. And again, you'll plan to weave in those tails at the end. All right, so knit to the end. All right, and when you're at the end of your first right side row there, you've officially connected everything. So now you can work the body in one piece. So now you'll just turn the work over and you will purl back across all of those stitches. So you're going to continue stockinette stitch for the length that your pattern says before we start the ribbing. If you want to adjust the length, feel free to do that before we get to the ribbing if you want to make the vest shorter or longer. So I'll see you back here once I've completed my stockinette stitch to the length that I'm supposed to knit to for my size. All right, now I have knit the body to the point where it's time to start the ribbing, the bottom ribbing. If you would like to switch to a smaller needle, feel free to do that. You can just start knitting with the other needle. I am not going to switch needles because I do my 1x1 rib pretty tight. Make sure you start on the right side of the work, so you're going to finish a wrong side row, and then we're simply just going to start knitting one, purling one, knitting one, purling one, all the way across. Okay, I'm nearing the end of my first 1x1 rib row here. You should purl on the last stitch if you have an even number of stitches. Now we're turning our work and we just continue the 1x1 rib again, knitting and purling. Knitting the knit stitches, purling the purl stitches. Okay, so I'll see you back here after you finish a wrong side. We're on the wrong side here, and we're ready to bind off on the right side. Knit the 1x1 rib for the length that you're supposed to knit for your size. You can always change the length of the ribbing if you would like. All right, when you have knit to the ribbing to the length you're supposed to, and you finish a wrong side row, we're going to bind off on the right side now. And Just going to show you how to bind off in the 1x1 ribbing. Goodness, I'm all twisted. Okay, so to bind off in the 1x1 ribbing, you start knitting one, and you purl one, and then you slip that first stitch over the second stitch, and then you continue, knit one, slip the stitch over, purl one, slip the stitch over, knit one, slip the stitch over, purl one. And you continue that all the way across, and I'll show you what to do when you get to the end and you have one stitch left. All right, when you knit all the way across and you're binding off and you've got one stitch left, you simply just snip a tail and pull the yarn through gently. All right, so now you have bound off for the bottom. And now we're gonna do the button ribbing. All right, so we've got the vest completed, the body of the vest, and now it's time to do the button band ribbing, and we need to do the ribbing around the armholes. First thing you're gonna wanna do is take 4 stitch markers, and on the right side of the work, so it's the right side as if you were wearing it, you want to denote where you will have your buttonholes. For women's sweaters, the buttonhole opening is on the right side. So I would start by marking halfway between the ribbing and the point where the V-neck ends. So do these 2 outside ones first, and then measure equally to do the inner 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to start picking up and knitting stitches on the bottom of the right front, and we are going to pick up 3 stitches for every 4 rows, and you do that in the outer edge of the band here. And you know what, I like to add a few extra stitches at the bottom to prevent the 1x1 ribbing from curling up at the bottom too much. I do a few extra ones at the bottom. So I'm going to go in there and go in here. Okay, and now I will start doing 3 stitches. 1, 2, skip a stitch here. 3. Don't worry about the buttonholes yet. 1, 2, skip a row, 3. 1, 2, skip a row, 3. 1, 2, skip a row, 3. So you do this all the way up till you reach the back, and then you'll pick up every stitch along the back. Okay, and then when you get to the back, you pick up a stitch for every stitch across the back. All right, when you've worked across the back, then you will pick up 3 stitches for 4 rows down the left front all the way to the end. Okay, I've got all of my stitches picked up. I've made sure I've picked up an odd number of stitches. So we've picked up on the right side. We're going to turn the work and work on the wrong side. And to start off, we are going to slip 1 stitch purlwise, purl 1, and then do our knit 1, purl 1 all the way to the end, and then we will purl the last 2 stitches. So just work your 1x1 rim down, and that just creates a little bit nicer of an edge at the bottom when we slip the first stitches like that. So like I said, just continue the knit 1, purl 1 all the way around, and then you will purl the last 2 stitches. Okay, I'm almost to the end here, to the last 3 stitches, knit 1, and then purl 2, and you can kind of pull the loose yarn. And then you're going to turn the work and work back. And this time when we start this row, since we are on the right side now, you're going to slip one knitwise, knit one, and then work the 1 by 1 rib. Okay, so complete this. You're going to work there and back, and I'll show you how to work the button row in a minute. Okay, now it's time to complete the buttonholes. I have knit 3 rows, and now it's time to do the buttonholes. We're on the right side of the work. We just finished a wrong side. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna knit 2 together and yarn over around our markers. So I'm gonna start the row as I normally would in my knit 1, purl 1. I'm gonna work up until I see my first stitch marker, and I'm going to stop before a purl stitch so that I can knit 2 together into a knit stitch. So we're gonna knit 2 together into a knit stitch there, and then make sure you really do a yarn over. You're gonna bring the yarn in front now and work the purl stitch, and you're gonna keep working in your rib until you get to the point where you are by that next stitch marker. Okay, and now you're gonna work up to your next stitch marker around where it is, making sure you stop at a purl stitch so you can knit 2 together into the knit stitch, yarn over, bring the yarn in front, and then hopefully it'll work out where the spacing is kind of similar in between. You can shift where you put the buttonholes. Again, I'm working up to the next stitch marker around where a purl stitch is. Then I am going to knit 2 together, yarn over, bring the yarn over, bring the yarn in front, do my purl stitch, knit, purl, up until I get to the next point where I've got a stitch marker, and then I am going to knit 2 together again, yarn over, and continue my rib stitch all the way around. All right. And then just be sure when you come back that you treat those yarn overs as if they were a normal stitch here, okay? And you'll work those on the way back. When you get back to those yarn overs on the other side, just make sure you treat them as normal stitches and you don't drop them. You want to make sure you still really have this great opening for your button, and then just make sure you follow the pattern, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. That might look like a purl stitch, so just make sure you're continuing the knit 1, purl 1 with the yarn overs. All right, now it's time to bind off on the 8th row on the right side of the work. And so you're going to bind off just as you did for the bottom in the 1 by 1 rib here. And you just keep binding off in pattern. So we're going to knit 2 stitches and bind off, purl, bind off, and continue this all the way around, making sure you're not binding off too tight for the edge here. Just because you want to make sure that it doesn't bunch up. All right, so I'll see you back here once you have finished binding off for the ribbing. Okay, when you've got the body ribbing done, now we're going to start by picking up stitches along the armhole to do the armhole ribbing. So you're going to start here at the bottom, and we're going to do the same thing, pick up 3 stitches for every 4 rows, and then I'll show you how to work in the round here once we get that going. So do the same thing, pick up 2 stitches for every 3 rows all the way around with your 24-inch circular knitting needles. Alright, when you've finished picking up all the stitches, you're going to want to join these in the round here to make sure you don't have any gaps at the armhole. And to join in the round like this, I usually just slip this stitch over here and pull this stitch over here, pull it off the needle, and then I twist that and I place my stitch marker in between. And I just wanted to note too, when you pick up stitches around the armhole here, make sure you have an even number of stitches so that when you do the 1x1 rib, it works out okay. So then you're going to start doing a knit one, purl one, all the way around. Knit one, purl one, and you might need to pull on the yarn a little bit here. But so basically you're going to work these stitches all the way around until your length, and then I will show you how to bind off. And then when you come around and you are nearing the end of that first row, I just wanted to show you how to continue knitting in the round here. So you'll come up to that stitch marker, you should end with a purl, slip the stitch marker, and then you just continue knitting in the 1x1 rib. All right, when you get to the length you're supposed to knit to before bind off, you can start binding off, and you just bind off in the 1x1 rib, just as we've done. And then I'll show you how to end it and join when you have finished binding off. Okay, when you've reached the end and you've got one stitch left, you're gonna cut the yarn with a little bit of a tail. You're gonna pull the yarn through, and then you're gonna take your tapestry needle and weave that end in the tapestry needle, and we're gonna just kind of close up that gap in the round and weave in our tail. So I usually just weave it back through here, and then come back through the center, stitch there, and close up that gap, and then I just weave this end through, down one of the sides of a stitch, and then you just cut the yarn, and you are good to go.